Thank you so much. I want to first off thank Making Midwest for this opportunity to share this platform with me. I take it very serious because I know how hard it is to stand up an organization and provide a platform like this. So I'm super thankful for that opportunity. And then I also just want to give a shout out to whoever made that playlist. I'll definitely will be following that, so I need those details. But yeah, seriously, what he mentioned in the last part of my bio, so I started Humans of Columbus, and pretty similar to something like this, right? People are gathering, they're sharing information, they're sharing resources, and that's why I love platforms like this, because I think that's the real way you make change. That's how you make impact, by learning other people's challenges, learning from their best practices, and sharing real life experiences. So I could have talked about quite a few things, because I work in a corporate arena, so I work for JP Chase, very corporate banking, type of deal. But then I also have two side hustles, like the Columbus Book Project, the Humans of Columbus, like he mentioned. So I have like two different type of environments that I'm constantly trying to juggle because I work full time. And then I also, like I said, have those two side hustles. So I could have got up here and talked about a whole bunch of other topics, but when I was thinking and doing some research and kind of looking back on my experiences and other past talks that I did, I realized that trust was the foundation to everything that I did, and one thing that I want to learn and continue to learn in order to build my self-awareness, my self-management. So meaning like how to trust myself, how to show up for myself, how to have that self-confidence by trusting myself. And then also how to use that trust to build teams, because I feel as though you need to trust one another, you know what I mean, in order to work collaboratively. And then, consumer loyalty. So folks who have brands out there, like what are you giving your audience? What are you trusting that you're going to deliver every single time? So we'll kind of go through each of those things, and then we'll have questions, but I'm very casual. So if you guys want me to, stop, raise your hand, I'll try to see you. And I can follow up on something. So a little bit about me, because I think that's important to know, who gives her the right to kind of get up here and speak. So I'm originally from Florida. I moved here to work for JP Chase. I had no idea what Columbus was about. Didn't have any family, didn't have any friends. I know I wanted to start my career with a firm that was reputable. They had a huge presence on our campus, so I met a lot of the people that worked for the firm, and I kind of had my eye on, working at the firm. I didn't know exactly where I was going to end up, though. I was open to New York, I was open to other cities or whatnot. So they came back and they said, hey, we have an opportunity in Columbus, and I said, okay, as an eager college student, about to graduate, I accepted the offer, and I decided, okay, I'll figure it out when I get there. So I moved to Polaris because it was close to the job. It was a very easy commute. But then I realized, I'm having a very hard time connecting with Columbus. I had, like I said, I had no reference point. I would ask recruiters, hey, what is there to do? What can we get into? And when I say we, I'm meaning other analysts that are also brought to Columbus, that they recruited to kind of work for the firm. And so what they would tell us, they're like, well, we live in the suburbs, or we live here, we don't really know what's going on. What I learned is that they didn't have their thumb at the pulse of what was going on for a young college graduate like myself who was looking to tap into the city. So after a couple years of living in Polaris, it's like, I have to get out. I have to move to something that's closer, something that reflects the lifestyle that I want to live. And so while other analysts were going different places, some people moved right after 2 years. They're like, okay, I'm going to go to Chicago. I'm going to try something else. But I was like, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to commit. I'm going to give the city a chance. And so I moved to 60 East Spring Street downtown by myself, very, very small, 700 square feet. And I started going places by myself. I would meet people. I would meet artists and students from CCAD. I would go to farm-to-table restaurants. I decided in that moment that I wanted to live a certain lifestyle. And I know also that I want to be an entrepreneur. I just don't know what I want to do just yet. But I randomly said, I'm going to find a gap in my lifestyle that I want to live, right? And so I'm downtown, living this lifestyle, having rooftop parties, meeting people, getting to know, the culture of the city, going to different neighborhoods, going to Clintonville, going to Franklinton, and just, meeting all of this rich culture. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this city. It just really kept growing on me. And so one of these rooftop parties, my friend who's an artist, she came up to me and she said, hey, do you want to come to my art studio? And I was like, yeah, of course. That's the type of, connection I want. And she had these 2 coffee table books, and she was flipping through them, and I was flipping through them, and I was like, wait, why don't we do a book about Columbus, fashion, art, culture? There's so much diversity. There's so much art, and there's so much richness in the city. And she was like, that's it. And so after 3 years from that idea, it took me time to kind of get the teams together, to get writers together and all that. But it took about 3 years to publish, so I self-published that after I moved downtown. So that's my side hustle number one. Then I became a mother, so that, added to, another layer of it, but he's 4 years old now, and I'm super blessed to have him. But I just mentioned that just to say, because people ask me, like, well, how could you do this and be a mom? How could, you know what I mean? And we'll kind of get through some of this stuff, and you'll kind of get to know how I manage it. But I think that you can't limit yourself. I'm a mother, and I'm proud of that, so I just wanted to put that out there. And the side hustle number two, like I mentioned, Humans of Columbus. And so that also is, again, embedded into everything that I do. And again, we'll kind of get to it more in the presentation, but as Ben mentioned, it's a traveling dinner party where we kind of go to these non-traditional spaces and we transform them. And so the crazy thing about this whole entrepreneurial effort, right, I had no idea I was going to come here and publish a book, but that happened. I had no idea that that would then spin off to be Humans of Columbus. And this book and this HOC experience, HOC, short for Humans of Columbus, these experiences have literally changed my life and the life of others. And I think that's because we worked on something that we're super passionate about. And all the people that I've worked with on these side hustles, I didn't really know before, but these people are now like my family, they're my friends. We bonded over this process. And so how do you create that environment with things that you're working on? Because another question that I get too is like, well, how can you work with your friends? Well, that's some things that you have to unlearn. So the first part of my presentation is understand who you are and trust yourself. In this section, I like to add just something up top that you can reference. And this is one of my quote when it comes to self-management. And I move away from self-awareness. I think self-awareness is important, but I think we're all in a space right now where we kind of know who we are, and we've kind of gathered some things about ourselves. But when you get that information, how are you managing that information? Are you circling back? Are you managing yourself? And so this quote, I love it. Success is something you attract by the person you become. So one thing that kind of was like an aha moment is the book, The E-Myth, and he talks about there's 3 different types of people within an organization, generally, typically. So are you the visionary? That person is the entrepreneur within this organization, and that's where I kind of fit in. So you're the visionary. So you live in the future, and you live for the present, and you're trying to make a change, or you're making an impact. As an entrepreneur, you desire control, and you love evolution, meaning you love change, you love innovation. And so learning these things were super helpful for me because I need to know, I need to know these certain things about myself and where I fit in. So yeah, that's me. Again, more learning. So with this, everything has its shadow. So the shadow of this is that, you could be selfish. You could be moving too fast. This is my things that I'm trying to overcome because I can have a very agile, want to move fast type of atmosphere. So I have to be mindful of that. And I have to work at other people's pace or be mindful of their pace and just let them know I like to work at this pace. And then devaluing the past, I have to be careful with that because when you want to think towards the future, you always want to be innovative and thinking about the future. But then you also have to look at the past and look historical, and look and see how you can either not replicate the past or make it better. So if you're not the visionary, are you the planner? So this person is the manager, and this person is my right-hand man. So I have, like I said, 2 side hustles, and I have a manager for each one of those, just because this person, they manage the day-to-day. And I think we were talking about this, Matt, with the whole email situation. There's so many things that comes with running an organization that you need someone who just focus on the task and getting things from red, yellow, green, or just getting things kind of down the pipeline. So this person lives in the past and the future. So they look towards the past to get some learnings, and they try to improve the future by building processes and things like that. They desire order and structure, so they can be very rigid, which again, you need that when you have timelines and deadlines that you're trying to stick to. And then they love systems and processes, and I kind of love this too because I read a quote somewhere that said, if you have a system, you kind of take the time, you skip time kind of thinking about something. You already have a system, you kind of just adapt to that system. You don't have to always have to rethink something, right? You just have a system that you stick to, and it's pretty consistent. So if you are the planner, what are some things that you can avoid? So you can be too rigid, and I have to manage this with my manager for Humans of Columbus because I have to tell her sometimes, like, be fluid, right? I get we have systems in place, but sometimes those systems fail. Maybe they're not adapting. Let's try to rework it. Let's be fluid. Let's make it work for us. Let's not like have the system, work for us. I mean, let the system work for us. We don't work for the system. And then seeing things, avoid seeing things unrealistically. That's kind of the same thing, right? It's like build a system that people are going to adapt to. Don't just build a system because you want to have a process, but build something that people can stick to. And then putting work before people. So putting people first, and again, not just kind of sticking to like, okay, this is how we've always done it, or what have you, kind of just keep people center. Okay, so if you're reading this, you're like, okay, I'm not the visionary, I'm not the planner, so maybe you have a specific skill, and the E-Myth references this as being the technician. So this is a person that is either a designer, they have a very specific skill, they stay in their lane. I love these people just because they've mastered a skill set, and it's very clear that they've done that. They live in the present, they desire results and performance, and they love direction. One thing that I realized about this is that if you are within this arena, asking little to no questions is not a good thing. And this is what I learned when I was working on the Columbus Book Project. I actually had a couple of designers from CCAD work on the book. And again, this is a learning, for both of us. And one thing I learned right away working with designers, I'm like, okay, I have to empower them to ask me questions, because if not, they're gonna create something that, maybe we weren't on the same page. So I have to empower them to ask me questions. And then also striving perfection. Obviously we want to have excellent products, excellent service, but sometimes you may have to put something out there that may not be all the way finished, whether you want to test it or you want to put it in front of someone. I'm all about like testing research before just putting something out in full market. So the technician has to be okay with his work not being all the way complete, just to get some more information and feedback. And then giving little to no suggestions. Again, I feel like as a visionary, you set the direction for the technician, and the technician, they want to execute. But I also feel like they have some vision as well, right? I think you can kind of fall within some of these buckets, but primarily the technician, again, I want to empower them to also have some vision with what they're working on. So staying in the vein of like understanding who you are and introspectively, these are some things that I've completed to help me uncover things about me. So when I observe myself, when I research myself, I actually use tools to get to the bottom of certain behaviors that I have. It's very interesting. It's just like therapy. You know what I mean? You learn things about yourself. You're like, yep, I do that. Yep, I do that. But why is that stemming? Where is that stemming from? Because what world can I create in order to enhance my lifestyle and things that I want to overcome? So these are some things, and I'm sure you've heard of most of these, but these are things that I love, and I've tried so many different things. So these are the things that I value. Values, I think that's important too, and I noticed too when I walked in the room, like CCAD had their values kind of posted, and this is something that I initially skipped, but I don't think, when I say skip, meaning that when I started working on an organization, I think we have intuitiveness, right? We kind of know, like, okay, yeah, integrity, yes, we come to work, we should, have integrity. But no, you need to know my values, you need to see how I prioritize my values, and then I also need to know your values, right? So we can have safe boundaries, we can respect each other and whatnot. So it's just, again, like, these things may be intuitive, but it's nice to have them on paper, and it's nice to post them so we all can remember to stick to it and live by it. So another thing, okay, again, you have all this awareness, you have all these behaviors, you have some things that you want to change. How do you take action? So one of the things that I love, and it's so interesting because one of my friends, they approached me a few years ago, they said, hey, can you be my accountability partner? And I was like, okay, well, what does that entail? And he just, pretty simple, like, you have to hold me accountable. Like, I'm gonna come to you, I'm gonna tell you what my ideas are, I'm gonna tell you my projects, I'm gonna tell you my deadlines. I want you to check in on me and just let me know, like, okay, how is that going? How's that going? Because sometimes we do need someone to kind of tap us. So if you have an accountability partner already, that's great. But if you don't, I would suggest to have one, whether that's your mentor or someone that can check in on you. I would also say how to take action by showing vulnerability. So just being able to just share, tell stories, right? If you're working on something and you had a rough day, be okay, you can share that. I think sometimes we withhold information and we withhold stories because we don't want to be judged or what have you, but I think the more you show vulnerability, then people can have more empathy. Also, stay learning. That's something that I'm super passionate about because I don't ever want to think that I know everything. I want to be able to have people give me information and just soak it all in. Do it every way until it's your way. So that, to me, okay, so someone was like, you should really journal. You should practice journaling. And I'm like, okay, one more thing that I have to do, great. So I was just like, I don't know if I can commit to journaling. It's just like another thing I have to spend time on. And then I was like, okay, let me just step back. So after a few weeks, I'm like, I'm just gonna take 30 seconds in the morning, I'm just gonna jot some things down. And so I did it in a way, and I approached it in a way that more so fit my lifestyle rather than trying to commit to this just final, okay, I'm gonna just be journaling pages and pages, right? I decided to pick something that kind of fit my lifestyle. Be the minority in the room. I love that because I feel as though sometimes we can get very stuck in our lanes and we love the crowd, we love our crowd, we love our group of friends, we love the places that we eat. We kind of stick to our kind of, our very specific lifestyle. But I would also encourage folks to just go places where you're be the minority in the room, whether it's like you participate, if you're not a part of the LGBT community, but you participate in pride, that's a way that you can kind of just tap into someone else's world. And so the more you can do that, the better. So moving on from trusting yourself and that self-awareness, that self-management piece, I want to also talk about how do you create trust amongst teams, because I think that then fuels productivity, and that, to me, improves results. So again, up here on the top, Radical Candor by Kim Scott. I recently read that book this year. I read it in 2 days. It was super good. And so one of the things that you see first is what she says in her book, care personally and challenge directly. And that's just meaning being brave and speaking candidly. And you guys probably already maybe have heard about radical honesty, radical candor. And it's okay, that sounds simple. Yeah, just tell people what you think. No, but people miss this all the time. And we actually have at work, my corporate job, my corporate gig, we had a series just on this, how to be radical, how to talk to people. But you do it in a way where you care about them, right? If I'm giving you critical feedback, I'm leaning into you. I'm leaning in with love. I'm leaning in with empathy. I'm caring about you, and I'm challenging you, right? I'm having a conversation with you because I want you to grow. And that kind of goes to the next one. It's don't weaponize critique. If you are, and this doesn't mean, you could be a leader, you could not be a leader, you could be a peer. But I think people need to give feedback, they need to receive feedback, but they do it in a way where they don't weaponize the critique. I kind of mentioned this earlier, discuss personal and values as a team. So again, one of my side hustles, Humans of Columbus, we did a whole 2 to 3 day exercise on this, just creating values. But I think it's very, very good time well spent. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the isms at Quicken Loans, probably not, because I'm in a mortgage, so I kind of have to know those things. But pretty much they're isms or their values, right? We are the they, that's one of their isms. And the crazy thing is when we learned those isms, we heard them for the first time, and we knew them, at least half of them. They're easy, and it's create values that are easy, simple, and things that you can make a reference to. Bond over the work. I love this one because I think people say yeah, you should get to know people at work and what have you, but I don't like connecting in a way that's inauthentic. I want to bond over the work. What is our project? What are our goals? I want to learn how you work. I want you to learn how I work. So I would just maybe keep that in mind, bond over the work. Don't hoard your people. So if you are a leader or if you have some influence, I would just say, and I like to take pride in this one just because I have been across a lot of talented people, and people are just wow, you make so many connections, and you're really good at connecting the dots, and you're really not afraid to kind of just share people. I'm well, yeah, because if you're really good at something, I need you to showcase that. I want you to get in front of someone else who may need that, right? So I'm it's very important to me to not hoard good people around me. I want to share them, share them. Give a damn about your people. That's more so if you're in leadership. That's, again, about caring personally. Don't phone it in. Actually care about the people that you work with or work for. Surprise and delight. So I love this one just because, it's about doing the unnecessary. So if you're like, just as a leader, I like to surprise my team with certain things. And I just think that's a nice element to kind of just add to the team morale. Give credit. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I like to do this over and over again, make sure people are giving credit for their work, because I think that's super important. They feel fulfilled when people appreciate that they've done something and they're acknowledged for that. So I would just like to emphasize to give credit. And then on a team, making it okay to fail. We all want to create excellence, but you have to fail in order to learn. And it's okay to fail. Let's try this. Okay, it doesn't work. Okay, we'll create something else. But I think we need to be okay to fail in order to make improvements or make an impact. And then the last one, set your people up for success. I kind of stole this from Kaufman Development. They actually asked this question to everyone on their team. Every time they have a meeting with their team members, they say, what resources do you need? And I just love that question, because there's sometimes you may need something, and just when someone asks you, what do you need? You're like, oh yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, what resources do I need in order to be a better X, Y, and Z? So, and the last piece too, I kind of talked about this when I introed the topic, is what are you going to commit to your audience that they're going to come back to you over and over and over again? So one person said something to me, last year, they said, dang, everything you do is dope. And I'm like, I appreciate that, because I don't put anything out there that's not quality, because I want my audience to trust me. Even to the fact where people are like, oh, when you call, I pick up the phone. I don't mess around when you call. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't call often, but if I call, it's, you trust that it's going to be something that you want to hear. So I just like to think, when I think about the connection you have with your audience, I would just say, pick 2 to 3 things that you can just instill a commitment to yourself and to your team that you're going to deliver for your people. And so Humans of Columbus, I have this up here as an example, because it's the latest side hustle that I created. So the first one, our guests are the protagonists and we are the guide. So there's 7 elements to a story. I'm sure you guys have heard about that. 5, 7, there's a few approaches to that. But the protagonist is our guest, and we are the guide. So usually brands like to be the protagonist. They like to be the leader. They like to be the center of attention. But that's not where we want to sit as a brand. We want to guide our audience, our person that we want at our dinners or interacting with us. They're the leader, they're the part of the story, they're the main character of the story, and we're just the guide to say, okay, hey, these are the guests that you need to be around. Here are the spaces you need to be exposed to. Here are some things that we think that you should, interact with. So that's, one of the things that we commit to. So another thing, we created a mission and a value, and a portion of our value statement is we want to create a social ecosystem where valuable exchanges thrive. And so this is the commitment that we're making to our guests, and this is the reason why, again, I'm not trying to brag, but we're sold out each dinner, just because people know that when they come and they walk in this space, they're going to get an exchange that's going to make an impact within whatever they're working on. And so that means everything to me. So that is a part of our business model. And a response, just pretty simple. We respond to every single person that hits us up on social media, email, and what have you. And just that little bit of just being attentive and having that acknowledgement is, I think, super important. So we seem approachable, and we seem that we want to interact with people. So that's super important. And the thing I'll point out here too, here at the bottom, the Canvas business model. So that's something that I've used. So before I even created a business plan, I looked at that and I just kind of plugged in certain key things that represented our brand and our organization. And it really helped us discover, okay, how are we going to monetize this? What is our business model? Let's kind of get to the root of those things. And so all these 3 things are in that business model. So I would like to open it up for questions. Please ask me anything. I'm super open, so definitely go for it.